Welcome to the Cash Flow Project Podcast. Are you looking to better your financial situation by increasing your cash flow? Too busy to hunt for real estate deals or don't know where to start? Then you're in the right spot. Join us as we dive in and talk about investing for cash flow using multifamily real estate.
Welcome to the Cash Flow Project Podcast. I'm your host, Steve Fierros with Tri-City Equity Group. Today, we have Dr. David Iglewicz on the show. With me is my co-host, Matt Callihan.
Hey, Steve. Guys, we got an exciting episode for you today, so stick around to the end. Dr. David Iglewicz is going to talk about what it's like to be a busy dentist seeking financial freedom through multifamily real estate and how he helps other medical professionals to do the same.
David is the president of Prostoig Capital, who specializes in multifamily investing for dental and medical professionals. As a graduate of Temple University and the Kornberg School of Dentistry, David has been a practicing pediatric dentist since 2003 and has been passive investing since 2004. He's been through and experienced two major downturns in the markets and having seen personal losses in his investments, decided to pursue better options. He's currently pursuing assets in Knoxville, Tennessee, Dayton, Ohio, and the greater Philadelphia metro area. David, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you for the invite. So that was fantastic. I love these invitations. And, it's great to be here, and it's an honor to be on your podcast.
Oh, we're super excited to have you on. And definitely want to love to dive in and hear what you've got to share with us and our audience. So,
I'd love to.
So, for those who aren't familiar with you, can you tell us a little bit more about what you do and kind of what you're working on right now?
Oh, of course. So I'm a pediatric dentist by trade, and my dad was a statistician. And you tell me if I'm talking too long, and then we can move on. But sometimes I have a feeling that people think I talk too much, and I think I do too. So I'll talk anyways. So
I have nowhere to be.
Okay. And so, it started back. My dad was a statistician, and he was all into the S&P 500. And he kept, he taught me that you stay in it for the long term, and there's going to be ups and downs, but you stick with it. So I went with that model, and then, I became a dentist. I'm just going to fast forward my life, and I became a dentist, and then I started acquiring some money. And I was like, the next thing I have to do is we've got to purchase a house. I was like, because that's the logical family thing to do. So we purchase a house, and I get, a small house. I'm always very conservative. Always, everything is, way under what I can afford. So that way, God forbid, there's a crisis, everything's taken care of. So we're paying off the house, and then and then we decide to get, and I'm playing around with the stock market, but everything's staying in there. I have a 401k now. I'm a partial owner of a dental practice, and we're expanding, and we have multiple locations, and everything's going great. And then we decide to move. And we upgrade and get a larger house, still well within the budget. And I'm continuing to invest in the stock market. And then all of a sudden, 2008 hits. And I see my 401k literally turn into a 201k, or maybe even less. It was like a 200k. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, okay, you know what? My dad told me, and he told me, and he's like, it's no big deal. It just comes back. You're diversified. And those were air quotes, because everyone talks about how they're diversified, and all fund managers will tell you, will tell you how diversified you are. You're not diversified. Let's be real. If the market tanks, I don't care if you're in stocks and bonds, unless you have a whole bunch of different assets, you're not diversified. Something's going to happen. You're going to tank, and you're going to lose money. And my dad told me it will come back. I knew it was going to come back. So I wasn't really stressed about it in 2008. In fact, I was doing, so well in dentistry, and I figured, you know what? Dentistry is recession proof. Everyone needs a dentist. I was like, this is perfect. Life is great. I'm doing fantastic. I'm taking care of patients. Everything's good. But, as we move on, and then in like 2010, I started investing back in the stock market. I mean, I was already investing back, but then I started doing basically day trading. And that's when it starts to get a little messy, because I'm just going to give you an example of what happened. But in between patients, I'm day trading on the computer, and it's 2010, And, the computers aren't like the internet, the wireless wasn't like it is now. Even if you were Cat5 plugged in, wasn't as good. Computers would crash, systems would crash, and I'm on the same system as, all the dental equipment. And so if I crash the system, the dental stuff crashes, and I'm like, oh my God. And I'm doing this. And so I would have to check it every day. And I would say I spent, about 100 hours, and I made $500. And I was like, and I got lucky. There was some luck involved. There was a lot of, and it was stress. And I was like, this can't be good for me. And I was like, I could get better at this. But what happens if the market tanks again while I'm doing this? I mean, I could, and then, and I was like starting to get into learning options. And I'm like, you know what? I got to take a back seat to this. I was like, there's a lot of really experienced people that lose money in the stock market. I'm like, this isn't for me. And so then I continued to look for other avenues on how to invest my money. And, I found the fiduciary that, started taking care of my money, and it felt like things were better. But there was always on the back seat, I was like, what happens if 2008 happens again? And so if 2008 happens again, I need something in some direction to go. And, because what happens if dentistry falls apart or I get hurt? I have insurance, but is it enough? It may or may not be. So I was always looking for another avenue. Well, in the back of my head, it takes me back a little bit longer. And my dad, he's a statistician, like I said, and he was teaching, and he came home, and he always talked about his students. And he always talked about his great PhD students and how they would work for, the big drug companies, and they were doing so well. And, and I was like, what, to me, I don't know what well is. I was like, are you happy, or are you financially happy? And so I didn't know what well really meant. And then he told me about, he was, at a graduation for this executive MBA, and one of the old students came back, and he was just like a C student. My dad's like, he got really lucky. I was like, what happened? How did he get lucky? Well, he was a real estate tycoon who invested in multifamily. And my dad didn't call it multifamily, but he called it apartment buildings. And this guy was wealthier and happier than everyone else there. And my dad's like, oh, he got lucky. It's too risky. Don't do it. This is not. And I was like, tell me more, Dad. This is wonderful. This is it. This is a ticket. And, we all know Rich Dad, Poor Dad from Robert Kiyosaki. And my dad was in the student mindset, and he had that investor mindset, but he didn't want to take it to that level. So he was like, no, stay away from it. And so it was always in the back of my head, just stay away from it. So that takes it back to, so I didn't really start passively investing into real estate until about 2018. But in 2017, I got the bug. And thank God for podcasts. And that's why, I'm on this one right now, just to share my knowledge, even though it's limited, to everyone else to get involved in investing, especially in multifamily real estate. And so what I did is I tried to find the magic recipe without doing any coaching or learning or anything else, and tried to find my path into apartments. Now, I'm still a dentist, it's 3 to 4 days a week in 2017, and it's still a lot. It's taxing. Oh, and I decided to semi-race professionally on my bicycle. And so I'm not really racing professional, but it's like the amount of training I'm doing, it feels like I'm a professional, because I'm training, on the track for the Masters Nationals Championship. So I have all these other stuff. And then I have, 2 kids and my wife. So I have all these things going on. I'm like, I can't spend too much money. Like, I can't even buy a duplex. And in my area, duplex, like, we look at these 1% rules. You're lucky if you get a 50-cent rule. It's like, 50%. And so I'm like, what am I going to do? And I was like, I can't do this, that, or the other thing. I need to buy a 20 unit, because if I go to a 20 unit, then I can spend, most of my time on that, and then I can hire a property manager and just focus on that instead of a whole bunch of quads. And so that's where the apartment building stuff started coming.
I love that. You jumped up quick there.
Oh yeah. So I went for it. The problem is finding a 20 unit with no knowledge of apartment buildings, and you're competing in a hot market against a whole bunch of people that have done it before with no coaching and no real mentor, and thinking that you could do this yourself, I was going about it all wrong. Because my whole life, it was always, I could do everything myself, So I was like, you know what? I'm going to keep trying, and I'm going to keep trying. And then I did the thing that you shouldn't do. I signed up with a broker. And so a broker, it was the person who sold me my house.
Mm-hmm.
It was her friend, because she kept sending me duplexes and stuff. I said, I need something larger. And I gave her my parameters. I gave her everything I wanted. And every deal she sent me, I told her why. And so she always kept sending me more deals. So I was inundated with deals. But finally, she sent me over to this commercial broker. And I'm like, now I'm in. I got a commercial broker. It's 2018. I'm in, and I got it. And I'm going to get good deals. Well, I was like, do you want to have coffee? Let's hang out, and he's like, okay. He wasn't really into me, but we had coffee, and I bought him coffee, and then we hung out, and we were walking around my downtown area, Phoenixville. And he's like, I can get you properties. He's like, I can get you properties, and I can find you stuff. I was like, I just need to send you some paperwork. So I read the paperwork, and I read it, and it was locking myself into him for 6 months. And I was like, so he starts sending me deals, and the deals still didn't add up. And it was the same thing. So for 6 months, I'm basically locked in. And so you can learn from my lessons. So, and so I never got a deal. The closest thing I got to a deal was an extreme value add. It was buying a church made in the 1900s and converting it to apartment complex, because it was zoned for everything. And it was in the middle of this neighborhood in Pottstown, which is, about 20 miles away from me. And I'm gung-ho. And I call one of our dental contractors, and I said, hey, just out of curiosity, how much are we looking at? And he's like, I'm not going to do it. He's like, there's knob and tube wiring. You know that. And this is going to be an extreme overhaul. And even when it's done, there's going to be some portion of the population that doesn't want to live in a church. I was like, there's these beautiful stained glass windows, but who wants it? And so that was the closest he got me to a property. So I was like, okay, that's not for me. That's, and then what ended up happening was I was listening to these podcasts at the time, and I said, you know what? I was like, if I can get, with these properties that I'm looking at, if I can't, and I'm just looking at, appreciation on these things, and the cash flows basically break even. I was like, let me see if there's another way that I can invest in real estate. And I kept looking around, and I came across several podcasts, and I kept listening, and I said, I wonder if I can invest with them. And of course you can. You can be a limited partner, and you can invest with other people. And I started seeing, I was like, so if I invested by myself and I worked really hard, I was lucky if I could get like 6% cash on cash in these 8 units, in 6 units. And all of a sudden, I'm investing with someone who's much more experienced than me, has more access to deals than me, and can get almost, starting first year, 3% cash on cash, but then going up from there and going 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then all of a sudden, if they go to sell or refinance, you're getting most of your capital back. Stuff that you couldn't do by yourself unless you're an extremely savvy investor and you're doing this full time. And I'm like, oh my God, this is the ticket. I was like, this is relatively safe investment. Actually, it's much safer than the S&P 500. If there's a recession that happens, more than likely, you're still going to get money and you're still going to get cash flow. And I was like, this is the ticket. I was like, this is it. And
you're hearing Willy Wonka on the Chocolate Factory. I've got a golden ticket.
Oh my God. And I was like, this is too good to be true. And so I started learning that side of the business. And I was like, I need to do this. And so in 2019, not only was I looking for these LP deals, I was still looking for active deals. And I was like, I want both sides of it. And I was like, I don't mind if most of my money's in the LP side with other investors and they're doing all the hard work and I'm putting up the capital, because I'm getting such a great return. And, these are good people, and they're helping out other people with, they're improving, because most of them were value add. So they're improving the apartment building complex. So they're improving the living standards for these other people that are living in the apartments. and I'm getting money back. I was like, this is great. So I made it a mission of mine to explain it, because most dentists don't do this. There's very few. Some do invest and they'll buy a couple single family homes and they'll rent it out, but they'll do it themselves. And dentists are really good at what we do, the dentistry. But then once you start adding more and more businesses, you're moving away from your one thing. And once you move away from that one thing, you're going to mess up. And it's just going to be a matter of time when there's another, 2008 recession, the housing market tanks, and you go to refinance those houses and they're no longer worth 150 and they're only worth 100 now, you're in trouble. Apartment buildings, usually you don't have that problem. I could be wrong, but that's, usually you don't have that problem.
You're spot on. You're spot on for sure. And I think you were starting to allude to it, but one of the questions that we always like to ask is, hey, what is your why for building this passive cash flow? I know you talked a little bit kind of about your history and your experience with investing, but it sounds like you're about to lead into it. But what is your why?
Oh my God, that's such a great question. So that took me a while, and it wasn't until I would say about a year and a half ago that I really figured it out. And the real reason is freedom. And it's the freedom that any day, if my wife, needs me, or if my kids need me, I can be there. And in dentistry, I can't just take off. I can't, just leave, and I can't just do it. And it's also the freedom of the mindset of if I need a day off, I can just let the mind go. It's okay. And it's no big deal. And then it's the freedom of being able to, buy things and not worrying and not stress about it. And it's the freedom. It's just the overall freedom and the way that I can give back that freedom and I can share it with others. And so that was the one thing. I know I broke it down into 4 things in the one freedom, but yeah, it's still, that's like my one thing is the freedom.
No, that's awesome. And I feel like a lot of times people need to hear that, right? Because
Yes.
they'll look at, let's say somebody like you, right? You're a well-paid professional, right? Like in the world of W-2s and dentistry and just medical field and all that kind of stuff. I mean, you're doing it, right?
Yeah.
You've been practicing dentistry. You've got multiple, offices and whatnot that you're managing, obviously overseeing, multiple employees. It's like, hey, you've done it, right? Like you're hitting that American dream, right? Air quotes, right? And it's like, yeah, but where does that get you? It doesn't get you to the freedom that you're talking about, right? So no, that's great. Well, so and I think you're maybe kind of getting into it here too, but let's go back and let's talk about the first deal that you actually ended up doing. I know you talked about some of you didn't quite get there with some of these, with the broker, or maybe the church deal, and which actually sounds pretty cool. If you could have made that work. But yeah, no, I definitely get the hesitation.
So let's go back to the first LP deal that I did, because that's where the fear mindset comes in. And I think, and this is important for your listeners, because most of these podcasts, people listen to them, and a lot of them have never invested at all in real estate, whether the LP side, whether they bought a duplex, whether they bought a quad. And I think it was the mindset that changed and it flipped. And I'm not used to wiring money. And, I'm used to writing a check, but wiring large sums of money, I wasn't used to, especially when you're talking to somebody, either via, Zoom or even on the phone. It's different than when you know somebody for a long time. Right. And then you have a relationship, like a really strong relationship. And even then there's a hesitation. And what pushes you over that fear in order to invest in a deal or in order to buy a property? And that's the important thing. And it was like a magic switch. And I said, I remember sitting in front of my computer, and I was like, and this was, I'm signing all the agreements, and I'm like, do I really want to do this? And I said, I need the freedom. And so then I hit the click, and that was it. And that was the freedom. Then going into the bank, because my bank I got to go into, in order to fill out the the wire form, and I have
sure.
to pay for it, which I rearranged that system. But anyways, at the time I had to pay for it, and they were like, "Are you sure? Because you sure you want to do that?" The bank even said to me, "Are you sure you want to do this?" And I was like, "Are you kidding me?" I was like, "It's already done." But it was almost like there was another reminder. Do you want to do this? And it was like, and I remember that day, and I was like, hell yeah. I was like, let's do this. I was like, this needs to be done. It needs to be done. What I didn't tell you was right before that, I reread Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And so it was almost like, it was like I was setting up my mind in order to do that. And that was the most amazing experience ever. And then I did, 3 other deals after that in 2019. And then in 2020, or this year, I had several deals lined up, and I was super excited. A lot of them I didn't even find. And I was like, this is it. 2020 is the year. And I was so excited for 2020. I was like, I always wanted 2020 vision. So I was like, this is it. We're seeing into the future. Like, this is it. This is the ticket. This is when it's all going to happen. And it's amazing, what happened. And it caused me to really look back on my life and everything that I'm doing. And it actually, as terrible as, COVID-19 is, it was actually, for my family so far, it was a blessing, because it forced me to spend more time with them, which I needed to do anyways, because that was part of my freedom. And not only that, it forced me to feel what it was like to be retired, because I'm stuck. So I'm not doing dentistry, in March 12th, I think was the last day. We just started back, but March 12th was the last day. And I was basically retired. And it was something I always wanted to feel, but I never got to feel. You can't take 2 months off. No one does that. And so I was like, this is kind of cool. And I was like, let me follow my passion. Where does it take me? What am I going to do? And what was funny is, because, I'm a big, I was big into cycling and stuff like that. I actually slowed down on the cycling, and I stopped biking as much. Instead of going out for 3-4 hour rides, now I was going out for an hour and a half tops, which still seems like a lot to a lot of people, but that's awesome, very little. And I was spending more time with my family and connecting with them. And my wife even told me, she was like, I really like having you home. I thought, she would get sick of me, but she actually enjoyed having me home, because then she got to see this happy energy instead of the tired energy. And I was like, she's like, you need to follow this real estate dream. This is where you need to go. And then my mom even told me, she's like, you get so excited about it. This is where you need to go. And so then I was like, I'm on the right path. And I knew that I was on the right path. So now my goal is just to excite and inspire other dentists and medical professionals to get involved in real estate. I don't care if you invest with me. I don't care if you just get involved in it. And if you want my help, I'll help you. I'll help you analyze the deals, but get involved, because it is honestly the pathway to true freedom. And I think that's what most people want in life. Did you guys read Bronnie Ware? I just wrote it down. Regrets of Dying. This is a book that everyone on this podcast should read it. And Regrets of Dying. And they talk to people that, only have several weeks left to live. And it's a nurse. I think she's a nurse. And, one of their biggest regrets, especially for men, was 100% of the men said that they worked too hard, and they wish they didn't work too hard. Like, who cares how much money you have if you don't have a family at the end of the day to go to? Yep. And that's where this multifamily real estate comes in, or real estate in general. It changes that path, and it changes, that whole cycle.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's a huge reason that a lot of us decided that we wanted to get into real estate investing. So no, that's awesome, especially for busy professionals like you, which I know it's like, hey, it's not even just a normal 9 to 5. People want to escape the 9 to 5. It's like, yeah, but what if your 9 to 5 is a 9 to 9? Because you've got the actual dentist work, or the office work, and then you've got additional work and planning and all that kind of stuff that needs to go in after the fact. And even just getting to your point about the family, It's like, no, I don't just want your leftovers, right? I want the best of you. And that's what we're,
yeah.
So that's huge. That's huge. Well, so you mentioned that was your first experience as an LP.
And that's as far as I got. And
okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. So, I did those 4 LPs, and then I was like, I need active deals, but I need big stuff, because I was like, I need big stuff, and I need, big people with me, and, and make this happen. And so that's when, 2020 happened, and then it kind of dissolved. We'll see. I mean, there's deals on the table, and we'll see what happens. I mean, 2020's, we're not even halfway through, so there's still a lot of time. And
That's
right. What I didn't mention was I keep going back and forth, but in 2019, I signed up with Rod Khleif in his coaching program. And that was the most amazing thing. And that's where, because they focus more on the mindset and getting the mind right, because they know a lot of people are going to make it in multifamily real estate. They just are. You just put your name out there. Eventually it's going to hit, and you're going to go. Whether it's in a couple months or 10 years, it's going to happen as long as you keep going for it. And he knows, too, that there's going to be tough times. Like, he hit a hard time in 2008. And, and he talks about a story where he lost $50 million. And each one of us are going to have those hard times. So getting this right, so when you get through the tough times, because the easy times, not so bad, but the tough times, they can be tough. And then it lets you rethink. But as long as you focus, so for me, it's focusing on that freedom. It's okay, and
right.
And then you can power through it.
No, you're absolutely right. And I think they were smart to focus on the mindset. I think for me personally, that was my biggest impediment to actually getting going and getting started. Because for me, it's like, okay, well, hey, that's for other people. To be able to live at home and to not live at home, to spend time with your family, good time with your family, and to not have to work actively for your income. Well, that sounds great, like in concept, right? But that's for other people. That's not for you. That's not what you saw. So for me, mindset's huge. So, and I think Rod, and then, a number of other people who are in the education space, you mentioned Kiyosaki, and it's all about the mindset. It's all about the mindset. So let's talk a little bit more about, you got into multiple LP deals. With that, now your current portfolio, with you being in those LP, how are those working out for you? How are those performing, especially kind of given our current circumstances now? Hopefully when this episode, we release it, all of this is blown over and we'll all just be, hey, this is great. But right now, is that presenting your portfolio with any challenges? Have you, how's that working?
So it's funny because I was interviewed in January about my investments in passive real estate. And it's this is why it's ironic. And they said, so, how do you feel about, investing with us, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, honestly, I feel more comfortable with my money in the passive investments than I do with everything else. From the bonds, even the muni bonds, which to me I'm getting a little nervous about, and all the stock market stuff, I feel most comfortable with this. And the reason why I say ironically, because when everything else was losing money, I was still getting my dividends or quarterly. And not only that, but the rents have actually gone up. Like leases have gone up, and it's just amazing. And in every passive investment you do, you also learn the business at the same time. And that's the other, even though you're an investor, most of the people that run these, the syndicators that run the whole show, they want to teach you along the way, because then you're going to invest again. And so they teach you along the way. And I've learned such neat things that it's just fascinating. Like one was Robert taught us about a pool. And this was, I think it was a Dallas property. And the pool wasn't open for several years. And why didn't they open it? And then there were, the pool people said that there were tiles off. And then they started up the pool. Pool was totally fine. And then there was a couple tiles missing. And they were like, just buy tiles, get them close to the match and put them on there. And they wanted a ridiculous amount of money. They went into the pool shed. There were actually extra tiles from 20 years ago. Put them on. I mean, you're talking about saving, tons and tons of money. And this is where you learn these fine details, because I wouldn't have picked up on that. I would have been like, yeah, you need to buy the new tiles. You want it to match. You want it to look good, and stuff. So those are the kind of things that are really, really important. You can pick up from the big time syndicator. So, and it forces you to learn, because you're getting these reports and you want to learn because it's your investment. And it's unlike stocks and bonds where you're just like, I have this mutual fund, I have that mutual fund. You're like, who cares? Like anything could happen any day,
Zero control.
Zero, because it's not based on how the company's performing. I mean, look right now, companies aren't performing, and stocks are going up, and the price per earnings don't make any sense whatsoever, and it doesn't matter. And so it's like it makes no sense. Real estate makes sense. It makes sense to everybody. And it's clear as can be. I mean, you can manipulate the numbers a little bit, but those rents go up and you're making more money. And, it's wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. One of our partners, Vince, actually tells a story about that, how he used to do tons of research into the stock market. But at the end of the day, it all ran by people. So he put a bunch of money into some stocks that on the uptick to do great. And then it turns out, the people that run the company are submitting false documents to the SEC. Stock tanked. So even if a company that's performing, you can't bet on it going up. Whereas real estate, you're kind of control of that.
You got it.
So kind of what I want to do, David, is I wrote down some questions as you were talking, and just things that I wanted to dive into a little bit more. So they may or may not be a little all over the place, but we'll just run through some of them.
Perfect.
So you first started chatting. You'd signed with that broker, kind of a mistake. One, I want to know what you learned from that. And two, how long before you started looking outside of your own backyard?
So those are great questions. So what happened was you get that feeling in your stomach when something's not right, or your gut, and something's not right, but you want something so bad, you push through that. Well, that was the biggest thing I learned. And I mean, that's the biggest thing I learned. I won't, even though I mentioned it before that I pushed through, I listen to my emotions. And if something is not right in my emotions, if I meet someone and something's just not right, I listen to that. Because if I don't, there's too many times in my life, I'm too nice, I'm too loving, and that I just give in and I just give. And if you feel that feeling, so this is to everybody, if you feel that feeling and something's wrong, then really listen to your emotions. Sometimes it's just the fear of the unknown, but sometimes it's actually that you're getting manipulated in not a great way. The other thing that I learned is read all the documents. And even and this happened to me again with another relationship, a broker relationship, where I signed it and it was part of an LOI, and I was able to actually. I went forward and I said, I signed it, didn't realize it. And then after the fact, I contacted the broker and I said, well, take that away, or we're not doing this. And they're like, no problem. And they just take it away. They want your business, and they want you to come back over and over again. And they really want it. But at the same time, you as an investor don't want to be locked in at all. And so that was the biggest takeaway, is that if I would have known what I know now and I accidentally signed something like that, what I would have done was contacted them right away and said, if you want to do business, that's fine. Take this document off the table.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
And then how long before you started looking out of your own backyard for properties? You said you're in Tennessee and Dayton, Ohio. And when did you decide to expand your search?
So always I was looking. And I didn't want, to be honest, I didn't want this Pennsylvania, this small Pennsylvania area, because I saw right away that I couldn't get anything bigger than like a quad or an eightplex. And even in the slum areas in Philadelphia, they're selling, like, you're looking now at like a 6 cap. And these are not easy properties to run. And so it's like it's not really a high risk, but I won't be able to sell it in the future. No one's going to want that trouble. And, unless they gentrify the whole area, which is a possibility, but unlikely, these are, higher risk areas. So I knew that I had to get outside of my area. And I was looking outside of my area. So I went, first it was like an hour, then it was 2 hours. And then I went, across the United States. And I just said, it didn't matter. It didn't matter because I love going to Southern California. And so I was like, I would love to find something in Southern California. We know that's not possible. Well, it's possible, but then it'll be even worse than here. And so then I was like, if I'm willing to travel there, why can't I travel anywhere? And so that's where it came out. So I would say it was 2018, but I didn't actually get the guts to get involved in it until I think it was March or April of 2019.
Okay. So you talked about liking to work with people or investors who really want to get into an apartment complex and improve the quality of life for the tenants as opposed to just stroking a check. So just to unpackage that a little bit, it seems like you really want to partner with people that are going to better the quality of life, but does knowing that the company you're working with kind of has a bigger mission than just making money, make you more comfortable when it comes to wiring that money? How do you get over that fear of sending that wire transfer and just know that your money's going to be working for you the right way?
Well, that's number one is it's the people, and it's that connection with that person that you talk to. And so, and you can feel that what they're into. Some are just all about the money and that they want to make a lot of money, and that's fine, but that's not for me. And the real mission, because when things go bad, because eventually something's bad's going to happen. And when things go bad, the ones that are just into the money may freeze. But the ones that are into the value of the tenants' lives are going to be like, okay, what do we need to do here? There was a fire. How are we going to get these people to to homes? How fast can we renovate these units? How many units can stay open for right now? And so you start viewing things in a different way. And then, you know what? And then they tell all the investors, this is what happened. It's going to be covered by insurance. More than likely, we're going to be able to fix things up and make a nicer, apartment building for everybody. Because when we renovate, it's going to all be new. And we are going to have to charge higher rents because it's going to be newer. But these tenants are going to want to pay for it because it's nicer. And at the same time, we're taking care of these tenants, and we're going to not give quarterly distributions for, whatever, a year or whatever, and whatever it takes. But that's where you want it. You don't want someone that's just going to be like, oh my God, we just lost out. Now, instead of giving you guys 5%, cash on cash for that first or second year, whatever it is, now all of a sudden it's really negative, but we're not going to be able to give anything. And then just not giving updates and not saying that you're taking care of the tenants and not caring about them, because that's when you get messed up. But if you focus on the tenants first, and that's the priority, you focus on those tenants first, all of a sudden you have huge cash flow, because if you make them happy, they stay longer. They're not going to constantly be looking for a new apartment building. And then, it's wonderful.
No,
Did I
you're
answer
right.
that?
Yeah, you did. They pay their rent as well.
Yeah, that helps.
Yeah, and so you kind of alluded to it, or you said it. Inevitably, probably something is going to go wrong.
Yes.
And so how important do you think it is that you really have a good grasp of what your personal why is to get through those moments?
Oh my God, that's huge. Because if you can always go back to that, because there's going to be tough times. Whether you wake up one morning and you're sick, let's say you end up getting coronavirus and you're really, really sick. You need that mission to fight through it. And you need, for me, that freedom. And why do you wake up in the morning? And what motivates you? Every morning I wake up and I write down one thing that I'm excited for. That's from Brendan Bouchard, but I'm stealing it. And so, I'm sure he will not be listening to this. And if he is, he's going to crack up anyways. And so, but it's every morning I write down that one thing, whether I'm feeling exhausted or not. And I write down that one thing that I'm excited for, whether it's going for the bike ride later, whether that's eating dinner with my family, whatever that is that day, that's what it is. And that's what pushes me forward. And everyone needs that. And it's super important because that gets you through the hard times and that gets you through the tough stuff, because there really will always be tough stuff. And the more tough stuff we get, though, the better we become. And the more people we can inspire, because every tough thing that we get through, we grow.
You're 100% correct. And I love that, David. You've got a great mindset that a lot of people could learn from. And I thought it was great when you said that this whole COVID-19, like obviously people are kind of uncertain about what's going on, one industry versus the other. I thought it was really good. And we talk a lot about in resiliency, hunting the good stuff. And you're taking this as an opportunity to kind of give a test run to retirement. And it's just reassuring that, like this is the route for you, multifamily, passive income, freedom with your family. So I thought that was pretty cool. COVID-19 taste of retirement. So I'm going to kind of wrap it up here, but it sounds like you're looking to both be an operator as a GP, and then you do passive investing as an LP, and that's kind of what you're inspiring other medical professionals to do. So just kind of one big, wrap a bunch of questions into one. Is there certain terms that you look for as an LP that one, makes you comfortable as an investor? Two, that your dentist buddies are saying, hey, look, David, I don't know anything about real estate, but you keep telling me that this is what I need to be doing. What's a good deal? What would you tell them?
And that's the magical question. So one, it's the most important thing is that you have to know that syndicator, or you have to have a friend that's with that syndicator that knows them very well and knows the underwriting and understands the underwriting. That's why I hold a monthly meetup, and it's geared towards everyone, but it's the basics of understanding this stuff so that you can invest in any kind of deal, or you can purchase your own property. It goes both ways. And but the actual metrics that I personally look for, now I go for, if I'm bringing it up, let's say it's different if I'm doing it as opposed to if I'm telling one of my other dental friends, hey, this is a good deal, because I'm willing to put on more risk on myself. But when it comes to another dentist, I'm not willing to take that risk. And so it has to be a very good deal to a great deal. And right now, during this, the last 3 months, I was only looking for great deals. And so I've seen good deals, but I haven't seen great deals yet. And that's my goal, is to find the great deal, because I really think that they're coming. But ideally is what I look for is one, before we get into the cash on cash and all that other jazz, is I look at their basic underwriting. And the first thing that I look for is the economic occupancy that they're holding for year one. Because almost always, you have a 100-unit complex, someone else takes it over, those tenants get scared. And they're like, oh my God, there's a new owner. They just did all these inspections. They did all these things. Yeah, they're saying that they're going to fix things up. They're going to make things better. You know what that means? We're paying more for rent. Let's look for a new place. So now you have your property management team going to all of them, sending them letters, sometimes welcome gifts, re-welcoming them, or re-welcoming you. And so your economic occupancy almost always is going to go down. And I've seen stuff underwritten that it actually stays the same or it increases year one. And when you see that, you already know that this is not a conservatively underwritten thing. And so then it comes to, well, what is the area? What is the economic occupancy for the area? And if you're, above that, then we're having a problem. And this is not a deal that I want to invest in, because one, they're trying just to get your money, and they don't truly understand. Maybe in the future they can get to this, but they don't truly understand, how it is to run this complex. Two is, I'm different than other investors in the sense that as long as one member on the team is experienced, I would be willing to invest in the deal. So I don't need someone that has, 100,000 units or 10, that's 100,000 is too much, 10,000 units, wish 100,000, right? And then, 10,000 units that they've worked on and that they've held, and they've always been a success. I just need to know that the operators are in it and that they get along, and that there's one person, at least if there's two, that they don't live right next to each other, or if they do, they don't fly together, because there's always the inherent risk that they could both go down. I know it's crazy, but you're investing in people. So if they both go down on a plane, or they both get in a car accident and they're no longer around, I need that business model to work, because as an LP, I'm not signing on the loan. I can't take over the deal. So I need to know that there's another partner. So I won't. And so with that regard, there was a great investor up in Erie, Pennsylvania that I wanted to get involved with, but it was just him. And he was younger. I believed in him. He's done several deals, but it was him by himself. And to me, that's, even though he has a whole team, if something happens to him, then the business doesn't work. So I look at it more from that point of view. So those are the first two things. And then I look at, their track record and what they've done and how they are as people. And, would they be, if something happens and let's say they put some money in escrow and it magically disappears because there was some embezzlement with the, with the escrow company. And stuff like this happens. Would they be willing to hand you back that money? I don't know. And so you're looking for people that are good people. And that's the most important thing. And that's what sells the deal. But the actual true metrics, the cash on cash, I've done anything from the average cash on cash. I'm looking at getting up to 10% is a good number. And that debt service coverage ratio better be, if I can find stuff for 1.25, you sure as hell can find stuff for 1.6. And if and at least getting, to 1.6 in year 2 or year 3. Because these big operators, they have much more connections. They're much savvier. So, but I need to see good numbers. And, and then so the cash on cash getting up to 10%, but usually most syndicators will sell once, and that's usually year 4 or 5 when they're on 10%. And once they're on 10%, they're either refinancing or they're, selling the property, at least in their plans. What was the other thing? Oh, the most important thing is I look to still be part of the deal. So if the property refinances and they give back that 100% principal, I look to still be in the deal. So even if I'm getting a $500 a year paycheck, I don't care. It's still $500. And that's, you keep doing this over and over again. And that's why I think Rod's podcast, I think it's lifetime cash flow. Yeah. And that's the whole thing is I'm not looking to be, rich next year. I'm looking to be wealthy in 10 years or ultra wealthy by keep doing this and then having that freedom. And you keep doing this over and over and over again. And that's the key. It's different than the stock market. And this brings us back to the stock market because I had to take out some money because I was moving it around to invest in real estate. Is everyone always thinks, you invest in the stock market, like everyone knows that you hold the stock for over a year, you're only going to pay capital gains. No big deal, right? 30%. And the problem is with a lot of mutual funds and a lot of funds, they hold on to other taxes and they pass it along to you as the investor. And so that 30%, even though you put your money at risk for all these years, you take out, let's say you take out $100,000, all of a sudden you may own less than $70,000. Let's say you made profit of $100,000. You now own less than $70,000 of that. And that happens a lot. As opposed to real estate, that there's a lot of different methods, one being cost segregation, that you can hold on to a lot of that growth. And then you can pass it on, doing a 1031 exchange or doing other things. So you're not paying as much taxes, even in these passive deals. And as you move closer to retirement or as you work less like I am, or as your wife is becoming a real estate professional or she was last year, then you all of a sudden can capitalize on these limited partnership stuff too. And all of a sudden you're seeing the daylight. You know, me working so hard in dentistry, I was like, what's the point? If I make this much money in dentistry, I can make half as much and sit at home, and I'm actually doing better for my health and my mindset, and I can help more people. I can spread this excitement and inspire others to do it. So, and that's where it goes. So where was I leading with this? I went on a tangent. It's Sunday afternoon.
Just kind of what you look for as an LP, but I think you've covered it.
Yeah. So I mean, those are the main things. And that's what I'm looking for. And I'm looking for a long-term relationship, because once I find a group, that's a good group to stick with, you know, if it works. And I reach out to other groups, but it's funny. A lot of groups, as you guys probably are finding out, are intertwined because partnerships form. And so you find out one over here is actually with one over here, and you know them both. And that's one of my goals is, you know, I already told other dentists, I was like, you have another deal from another syndicator? I was like, send it to me. I'll analyze it for free. I have no problems with it. And, you know, because that's my goal, is to get them, you know, what I already did. And I just need them to get it to that one deal. Even as a limited partner, one deal, that's all it takes, and then you're hooked.
You know, the last point that I wanted to make before I turn it back over to Steve. But earlier when you were talking about that church deal and you just kind of had the bug, you were wanting to get into a property, a lot of our listeners may not have done that first deal. So I think there's a lot to be said about getting over the hump of just doing that first deal, you know, getting over the fear, doing your first deal, and kind of the rest. I won't say it's smooth sailing, but it's a lot easier going forward. How do you recommend balancing doing that first deal, but not just doing any deal because you want a deal so bad?
That's a magic trick. Yeah, honestly, it was tough. Like because I like to jump right in. And so in finding the deals in my area were really, really tough. So you do need to jump right in. But my suggestion for everybody, if you are, you know, an accredited investor, and the reason why, even if you're non-accredited, is to get involved with somebody else's deal. And you can learn so much from it, because even, you know, if you listen to Bigger Pockets or whatever podcasts, most of them will tell you their first duplex or their first flip or their first house, they didn't make any money. Or if they did, they got lucky. Most of them lose money but if you can fast forward that step and not lose any money, and all of a sudden you invest in somebody else's deal, and you can learn a lot. And not only learn a lot, but you get great connections. One of the things I didn't mention, the whole other reason why I love the real estate, you know, in the multifamily, is that I obviously love talking to people, and it's the connections that you make, and it's like true friends. And you can hang out with someone that is, you know, 18, 17, 18, 19, that's just getting into this, and you can feel their energy. And in the same room, in the same conversation, you're sitting next to a 60-year-old billionaire, and you guys are all the same. All the same. I can learn just as much from a 17, 18-year-old sometimes than I can from the billionaire. And that's what's amazing. And that's why I love it. It's like the equal playing field. It's unlike dentistry, which I'm in, is that, you know, a lot of the newer doctors look at me as a mentor. And it's funny, even when I'm teaching them, I'm always trying to learn from them in dentistry, because there's always new stuff that's coming on. And so I'm always looking to them. But they always, you know, they always call me Dr. Dave, Dr. David, even though I tell them not to, but they still do, because it's that respect. But in real estate, we're all like the same. And that's what's so cool about it. And it's like you hang out with these people and everyone is excited about it. And I love that. I feed off of that. I feed off of that stuff. So I love it. Total sidetrack. I know.
Oh, that's awesome. No, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing too. And I think if anything, I'm sure Matt and I both appreciate your enthusiasm and your energy.
Oh yeah.
It's infectious. I mean, it really is. At the end of the day, I mean, you've mentioned it a few times. It's like, it's about the people. And so if you don't enjoy the people, if you don't enjoy serving the people, working with the people that you are to put together these deals or partner with these deals on, then, gosh, like maybe you need to look somewhere else. Right. So no, that's awesome. Well, let's go ahead and transition now, David, to our fire round. So,
all right.
Let's go ahead and fire out some of these questions here. So what for our audience, what is the best business book that you recommend?
Oh,
non Rich Dad Poor Dad, although that's more mindset, I guess. But
why am I drawing a blank? Help me out. Napoleon Hill's book.
Oh, Think and Grow Rich.
Yeah, is that really a business book though? It kind of is. He's. I mean, that's always when I'm driving like my long rides, and I'm not feeling as upbeat as I should. I go back to that book. So that to me is, even though it's not really a business book, that counts as like my favorite all-time listening book. Is that part of the fire round?
Yeah. No, that's perfect. I was going to say, well, the mindset is so important. It's going to tie into,
yes,
it's getting your mindset correct directly leads into how effective you are in business. So that's the way I see it, anyways. So okay, great answer. All right, next question. What's your superpower? Beyond clean teeth.
Beyond clean teeth, right? What I've learned, it's the two words that I keep mentioning. It's exciting and inspiring people. And that's what I do. I mean, I had a friend at my meetup who I invited to, and it was his first time at the meetup. And he's like, because we talked about cycling, and he's like, when you got into cycling, you went for a mission, and then you won the national championship. You didn't win it once, you won it twice. And he's like, you hired the best coaches. You were so disciplined. And you were so happy doing it, and you were like so into it. And then, you fast forward to this, and he saw that same energy, and he's like, I was excited, and that's what it is, and that's what I honestly think. That's what I was put on this planet for, was to give energy to other people. When other people are feeling down, I bring it up, and sometimes it's uncomfortable for me because sometimes I'm on calls and everyone is down, especially during this coronavirus. And they say, how you feeling? I'm like, I'm a freaking 10. And, I'm honest and I'm upfront about it. Do I sometimes feel like a 1? Yeah. But I bring myself back up. I look at myself in the mirror and I said, what am I upset about? I got a great family. I'm in a house. I have food. Everything's freaking great. And I was like, everything's golden. So that's my superpower.
We need that.
Yeah.
So... All right. What advice would you give to a busy working professional looking to achieve financial freedom one day?
That's a great question. Don't view where you are right now as where you're going to be in the future, and invest in real estate now. That would be like the number one advice thing that I could have. I don't care how much money you have, but learn the business first. And then invest in real estate. It will be worth the time if you really want that freedom. And I think most people do. I don't think most people want to stay in their W-2 job forever. And with things changing with the coronavirus, I think the whole W-2 world is going to be different. I think people are going to have multiple W-2 jobs, and they're going to be working from home, and you're going to eventually be overworked. And, putting in 80, 100 hours a week is not the greatest lifestyle, especially like when you're in your 60s.
Oh, absolutely. I definitely agree with that, and do not look forward to doing that in my 60s, and will not be. So, yeah. Unless I want to, right?
Unless you want to.
That's it. So do you have, as we kind of wind down here, do you have any requests for our audience?
Requests?
Yeah.
Oh, listen to this podcast. Get excited. Get inspired. I mean, that would be, learn the real estate business. And even if you're in it, learn it some more. And then those days that you're having a tough time, let's say you're a big syndicator and you're listening to this and you own, 100 different complexes and you're feeling beat up, reach out. It's okay. We all have those down days. So, and remember why you got into this, because I see it. Sometimes when people get really, really big, and I've seen it in dentistry too, is they forget how they got there, and then they treat other people how they should be or how they didn't want to be treated. So remember where you came from, and then just be happy. Be happy and the other thing that I actually lost track of was that at the end of the week, which I was just doing right before this, because, this is Sunday afternoon. I'm in Pennsylvania. You guys are in the morning. And
right.
I don't know. I've been talking a lot. It's probably afternoon now there. And so but is celebrating those wins, whether they're small wins or big wins, is celebrating them. I don't care. My daughter put on her first ever YouTube video. Man, that was in my journal. I was super excited for her. She's 12 years old, and she had the courage because she has anxiety, and she fought it, and she put it on, and she posted it, knowing that there could be people that said bad things and all these things. And, and she fought that fear, and she went for it. And I was like, there you go. You put up your first ever YouTube video. And I was like, that's great. And then keep it going. And so celebrating those wins and looking back every week, because you'd be amazed at the amount of stuff you accomplish in a week. But if you don't journal it, if you don't write it down, you're never going to appreciate it. So celebrating those wins. In fact, oh, my phone's over there. But I have an alert on my phone that says celebrate your wins or celebrate the wins. And it reminds me through the day, and it just, pops up. I forgot what time. And it pops up, and I have to close it because then it makes me think. Because whatever I'm doing during that day, it just reminds me to remember and to celebrate those wins. And then on Sunday afternoon, that's when I really look into it. I'm like, oh my God, look at this, look at that. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, no, you definitely have to do that. Absolutely. You always can't be down on yourself. You definitely have to celebrate the wins, right? So that's great.
Yeah.
Well, as we wrap up here, how can, if people want to connect with you, how can they reach out to you?
Oh, they can call me. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. Different.
Set an appointment, right?
Right. No, you can visit the webpage. It's I think it's www.prostoig.com, PROSTOIG, and then DSI@prostoig.com. And either way, you can reach out to me. Whether you want to talk about passive investments, active investments, I talk about everything. I cycle, family, whatever you want to do. I'll talk. I love talking.
No, we appreciate that, David, and thanks for being such an open book.
Of course.
Well, it's as we wrap up here, it's been an honor and a pleasure having you on the show. We'll definitely look to either having you back on again at some point when you have the 100,000 units, right?
Well, yeah, the 100,000. That would be a little overwhelming.
But not a moment before then.
What's that?
I said, but not a moment before then. 100,000 units, or it's off the table.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot.
Or we make those palm trees a reality, and we have you, and you're out here in Hawaii with us. So,
oh my God, yeah, there's a lot. Yeah, then I don't normally eat the Italian ice, but when I was out in San Diego, where was I? And it was LA County, and there was someone with the Hawaiian shaved ice, and she runs the place, like the real stuff, and because she's from Hawaii, and so that I have to get when I'm out there. And I don't normally eat that stuff, but I want to taste that kind of ice, that real Hawaiian shaved ice.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's some great places here. We got you. We got you covered whenever you make it out.
All right, perfect.
Well,
nice
again, thanks so
David.
much.
Thank you. All right, take care.
Enjoy your Sunday.
Thank you. You too.
Aloha.
Man, what a great episode with David. Some of the big pieces that I really took away. Invest in real estate now if you really want freedom. Number 2, listen to your gut, read all the documents, but do your first deal. You got to cross that hump. Really ties into number 1 of just getting into real estate now if you really want financial freedom. Number 3, work with people that you trust. It's key to build a team, and it really helps overcome that fear of sending in money, writing a check, doing that first deal. Number 4 is one that I particularly like. Hunt the good stuff. During coronavirus, Dr. David has been using this as an opportunity to actually give retirement a trial run. And it's just reaffirmed his why for why he wants to invest in multifamily real estate, right? He could be pretty down on the situation that's going on, but he's viewing it as a positive. He gets to see what retirement's going to be like. And then lastly, celebrate your wins. You can journal them, set a reminder in your phone. Just be sure to celebrate all those wins so that you can appreciate them and not forget about them.
Thanks, Matt. If you found value in this podcast, please subscribe so you can get the latest episodes. We would love it if you give us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Stitcher. If you know anyone who might resonate with today's podcast, please share the episode with them. To connect with like-minded investors, join our Facebook group, Honolulu Multifamily and more. If you're interested in connecting with us, go to tricityequity.com to learn more. See you next time. Aloha.